Hi traders, this is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for Friday, the 18th of January. All right, it's been a pretty frustrating week. Very hard to sort of work out what's coming and going. Obviously, sterling, the main game. I'm not usually into sort of blow my own trumpet, but the technicals were sort of telling me the last couple of days, even though this thing was trading sideways, all the negativity's placed into sterling, and we are starting to see sterling rally, and it's gone from being like a mildly bullish situation to a very bullish situation. The price action here is not easy. As you can see, the price action around the trend line there, you could have been easily kicked in and then kicked out and then wake up to see it 100 points high. Very frustrating. Okay, let's just quick run through the majors. Aussie still sideways. I mean, don't worry about these little sort of ups and downs. Kiwi's got a little bit of a sideways with a slightly bearish sort of tone on the hourlies. The daily and the weekly charts are still trading sideways, as is, or sort of the opposite, dollar yen starting to slowly squeeze to the top side, but it's like watching paint dry, if I can get that out. Now, euro, despite sterling going through the roof, is still, I mean, it's lost momentum, but you can't deny it is still looking like it wants to go down. If we had a really strong US number, right, or a really big euro number that came out weak, that would be perfect to get into a trade here on euro to the downside. I think it's still got another couple of 100 points to the downside. Of course, the euro sterling situation with Brexit is probably going to blow that out. Now, dollar CAD, as you can see, just trading sideways straight through the trend lines. This tells you that all momentum has been sucked out of CAD, but we do have the CAD CPI today. Oil still at $52. So that's where we are at the moment with the chart. So basically, for me, it's a simple case of I'm just going to leave that line here in Kiwi. If anything, you got the start of a resistance line on the top side. You've got that line on the downside. You could move that to the bottom, but it's pretty weak. Dollar yen, I'll leave that exactly where it is as well. Euro, I'm just going to be sort of like after yesterday's price action, it's still trading sideways. So I want to know where that low is. So I've moved that support line. And pretty much you could do the same on dollar CAD, but all you're doing is moving to the current high. It's just trading sideways, so I'm just going to leave that trend line there for the moment. Now, one of the major issues as we come back to the major pairs here, and just have a look at the big issue that's outstanding out there at the moment, which I expect to get a bit more airtime, is the US-China trade issue. Okay, I'll show you some news in a second. There was a bit of a kerfuffle in talking about US Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin talking about easing tariffs, but that turned out to be a false alarm. Dollar yuan, the offshore yuan, is still just trading sideways, but you've got to think, with the weakening Chinese numbers, I think the dollar's going to rally to the top side. Now, the dollar index give you a good idea of what's going on. It's just trading sideways, pretty cruisy, no major data coming out. Equity markets, just slowly cruising along as well. Everyone's sort of getting used to the whole new Fed mantra, which is basically, we're going to wait and see what's going on. No pressure on rates. So equities, they aren't really rallying aggressively, but they aren't really going down either. So no changes there. Now, what I want to talk about was just update you on was check out the all these US numbers, right? So this is where the US shutdown or the government shutdown is going to come into play, because you've got a whole range of numbers here, and see the scope here. Like, there's basically, I've actually just lost that side of it. The whole scope of all the data, basically, it's like a weak range, because there's no government agencies collecting the actual data itself. So if I just go back and refresh the economic numbers, what we're doing is we're starting to get a backlog of US economic fundamentals, which we need to see what's going on in the market. The Fed's not going to be happy with this. Makes their job a hell of a lot harder. And we really need to see what's going on. So I just need to flip that upside down. But so that's what we're doing. We get a whole heap of data here, which is usually coming out, which is actually on hold because there's no government agencies collecting the data. So that's actually one of the biggest issues that we've got going forward, is the trying to work out what's actually going on with all this, here it is here, all the US numbers. So when you're looking at the scope of where everything is, I mean, there's a whole heap of stuff here. We need some information. We don't even know when it's coming out. So When they did this last time, a few years back, there was a whole heap of data day after day after day. It was a bit of a kerfuffle. It took the markets at least a couple of weeks to work out what the hell was going on. But that's one of the issues we've got with this US government shutdown. Now, just to give you a bit of a heads up on the news out there at the moment. Well, it's once again with the Brexit now sort of taking a little bit of a breather while they work out what's going on. You had to expect Trump to be coming back into play. All the US officials, as I said, US Treasury Secretary Mnuchin was talking about easing rates. There's a report, and that report was denied. You're going to get a lot of this crap floating through the market, whether that's circulated by banks or individuals or fund managers. You know, everyone's playing a few little tricks. The sterling a little bit higher. We've spoken about the soft Brexit. Dollar CAD, well, it's just waiting for the CPI numbers, and that's where we come back to is actually really looking at the overall picture here in the MyFX Trading Hub, just looking at what's what in the market. Now, as far as trading conditions go, they're pretty good. I mean, markets are back at full liquidity. There's no sort of, we've got these sort of ongoing, dragging geopolitical issues, but they're just simmering. They're not really dominating. Brexit, well, it's the biggest issue, but the rest of the majors are sitting there waiting for the next big thing to come out. Now, as far as big things to come out, UK retail sales, I tell you what, if momentum is up and these numbers are strong, well, you've got to think it's going to have some sort of impact. And the current UK fundamentals are very strong, right? So if Brexit's sorted out, the Bank of England's going to start raising rates and slowing down inflation, because that's where the pressure is at the moment. But the other two major releases, so the Asian session, I can't see a hell of a lot going on. You get into the European session, there's obviously UK retail sales. We do also have that ongoing G20 meeting. I don't expect anything to come out of that. The main thing on that will be Trump and tariffs on countries. I'd say that's the major news article. But then you come back down into the North American session. Okay, CAD CPI. This is going to be pretty important. And to the future direction of dollar CAD, the funds at the moment, dollar CAD itself is trading sideways. So this data, whether it's strong or weak, should give us a bit of a potential opportunity, either topside or downside, for at least a short-term trade. If it's big, if there's big variance, well, then we're going to get a big kicker. And traders globally are waiting for something big to get their teeth into. The CAD CPI is that data. And then when you come back and you look down for something out of the US, well, you've got the prelim University of Michigan consumer sentiment numbers, a very good historical sentiment number, very well respected. So that can come into play. That's around sort of 3 p.m. New York. So pretty much you should be squaring up at that stage anyway. And that sets us up for a big week next week. Lots more just big fundamental numbers as opposed to central bank stuff, which we've had this week. All right, now just scrolling down here. If you look at the majors, and as I said, I don't want to blow my own trumpet too much, but sterling, I've had this mildly bullish the last couple of days. I mean, since the Brexit, because it was sort of hadn't really tweaked higher on the hourlies, but the dailies and weeklies, it was moving higher. Now it's actually through those levels. It's definitely got a very much stronger bullish tone to it, and there's no stopping it. It could go another 300 or 400 points without stopping it. Dollar Swiss has moved into a mildly sort of bullish framework. So there's a couple of little options here, but the rest of the pairs, okay, objectively, they're just trading sideways. Sure, they're moving up and down a little bit on the hourlies, but that's not enough to get us into the trade, right? We want some of the different time frames all lining up, whether they're bullish or bearish. At the moment, we're not getting that, and that's why trading is a little bit scarce at the moment. So just sit tight, wait for those events to roll out. Maybe next week. I'd say the CAD CPI is probably going to be the main event for the market today, global market, and that's where we are. Now, just a bit of an update with the, we are starting to bring in, just for better information flow and better resources, we're setting up a new 247 trade zone. You'll be able to check that out if you click that last link, and you'll come across to the trade zone itself, and you can start to get in there, have a look around. Like we're still adding different components to the new trade zone, but it will be a lot more beneficial. You'll be able to find exactly what you're looking for and ask specific questions around specific parts of your trading. All right, guys, that's it from me. It's Friday. It's pretty hot outside. Unlike the major currency pairs, which are pretty stagnant. The sterling's the one to watch. Keep an eye on dollar Swiss. From here, as I said, the Asia session is going to be pretty quiet. Bit of activity in Europe, and then we come into the North American session where there are some lively releases. That's it from me, guys. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the 247 trade zone. Cheerio.